I had always been drawn to the abandoned. Something about forgotten places, those that time and neglect had claimed, called to me in a way I couldn't explain. That's why I found myself standing outside St. Mary's Hospital on the outskirts of Detroit at twilight, my camera in hand and my breath forming tiny clouds in the crisp air. The hospital had been closed for decades, but its reputation lingered. They said it was haunted. They said it was a relic, a shell of something unspeakable. To me, though, it was just another location for my paranormal investigation channel. A new opportunity to find something that would send a chill through my followers. I reached up and pushed the broken window open, hearing the glass crack and crumble as it gave way. The smell of mildew hit me first, followed by the stench of rot. Inside, the walls were covered in faded murals, peeling paint, and the occasional eerie scribbling of graffiti that spoke of dark things. A reminder that I wasn't the only one curious about the place. My flashlight beam flickered briefly before settling, and I adjusted the camera on my shoulder. I took my first step into the old hospital lobby. The air felt thick, heavy, as though someone had been waiting for me. The floor creaked underfoot, but the sound was swallowed quickly by the silence that hung in the air like a dense fog. I couldn't help but feel a slight unease, but I pushed it down. I wasn't here to be scared. I was here for evidence. My feet carried me deeper into the building, passing old wheelchairs abandoned in corners and hospital beds tipped on their sides like discarded toys. I recorded everything, narrating into the camera in my usual calm tone, trying to capture the unease I felt without letting it get the best of me. The hospital was eerily pristine for its age, untouched by time in a way that felt wrong. There was something about the absence of decay, like the building was waiting for something or someone. As I walked, I noticed discarded medical tools scattered along the floor. Scalpels, syringes, rusty clamps. Some of the tools had been covered in a thin layer of dust, while others appeared almost fresh. But they weren't the only unsettling things I noticed. Strange graffiti covered the walls. Fractured faces, symbols, and phrases that seemed to reach out at me in ways I couldn't quite explain. I caught a glimpse of one phrase written in smudged red paint. They never left. It sent a cold shiver down my spine, but I pressed forward. I reached the staircase that led to the basement, the morgue. According to the rumors, this was the heart of the hospital's dark past. The place where patients were experimented on in secret, their suffering a forgotten part of history. My heart began to race as I descended into the darkness, the air growing colder with each step. The light from my flashlight flickered again, and I gritted my teeth. Not now. Not when I'm so close. When I reached the basement, it was pitch black, except for the dim glow of my flashlight cutting through the void. I pulled the camera out, holding it in front of me, scanning the area. The morgue was long abandoned, but the feeling of eyes watching me was undeniable. My footsteps echoed in the silence, too loud, too intrusive. And then I heard it footsteps. Not mine. I froze. My breath caught in my throat as I strained my ears. There was someone or something moving in the darkness just beyond my sight. I reached for the camera, switching it to night vision, but the moment I looked through the lens, the figure was gone. My mind raced. I'm not alone. The whispers came next, low and unintelligible. It sounded as though a group of people were in conversation, but the words were muffled, distant. Yet the hospital had been abandoned for years. It was supposed to be empty. I took a deep breath and pushed forward, following the sound of the whispers. My flashlight scanned the room, illuminating the dust-covered remnants of old medical equipment. I stumbled upon a room with an operating table at its center. The table was covered in faded sheets, and old, rusted surgical tools lay scattered nearby. But what caught my attention wasn't the tools, it was the figures standing around the table. They were dressed in old medical uniforms, their faces hidden in shadow. They didn't move, didn't speak, but their presence was undeniable. I blinked, and when my eyes refocused, they were gone. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest, but as I turned to leave the room, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. I spun around, my breath ragged as panic set in. The room felt smaller, as though the walls were closing in. The whispers were louder now, frantic, urgent. Then a voice, clear as day, crackled through the hospital's intercom system. "Prepare the patient." I froze, my blood turning to ice. My camera light flickered again, and when it came back on, the surgical tools began to rise off the table, floating in midair as though moved by unseen hands. I could feel my pulse in my throat, every instinct telling me to run. But my feet wouldn't move. The tools hovered, twisting in the air, and I took a step back, my camera's light shaking in my hand. That's when I saw it, a figure, a silhouette, standing at the far end of the room, watching me. I didn't wait for it to move. I turned and bolted for the stairs, my breath coming in short gasps. My heart hammered in my chest as I stumbled up the narrow stairwell, the sound of footsteps echoing behind me, growing louder with every step I took. I reached the roof, the night air sharp against my skin. I was gasping for breath, my camera still clutched in my hands. I grabbed my phone, dialing the number for the rescue team, my fingers trembling. My voice was hoarse when I spoke, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped. There's something in here. Something not right." Minutes later, the team arrived and I collapsed into their arms. I was unconscious when they found me, the weight of the experience too much to bear. They never found anything, no signs of anyone else in the building. Just me, alone, and half mad from the terror I'd witnessed. I woke up in the hospital, my head throbbing and my body aching. The rescue team had gone over the footage I captured, but they couldn't explain it. No one could. The ghostly figures, the levitating tools, the whispers, it was all there, recorded in perfect detail. It wasn't until later that I learned the truth about St. Mary's Hospital. In the 1930s, the hospital was a place of dark experiments, unethical treatments conducted on patients, many of whom disappeared without a trace. It seemed that some of those patients had never truly left. Their suffering, their torment, was forever tied to the hospital's decaying walls. Now, I find myself haunted by the memories. The whispers still echo in my ears, and every so often, when I close my eyes, I see the shadowy figures standing around the operating table, waiting for me to return. But I won't. I never meant to end up here. It's funny how you can set out with one goal in mind, thinking you'll conquer a place, and then, without even realizing it, you've lost control. St. Mary's Asylum wasn't supposed to be anything more than another location for my urban exploration blog. It was a challenge, an abandoned building full of untold secrets, and I was going to be the one to uncover them. But I had no idea that it would leave a mark on me, a mark that, to this day, I still don't fully understand. The sun had already dipped below the horizon when I approached the asylum. The place had been abandoned for decades, left to rot with the ghosts of its past. I had heard the rumors, stories of violent patients, whispers of horrific treatments, and the occasional tale of paranormal activity. I never believed those stories. Not at first. I was a skeptic, someone who wanted proof, not hearsay. The main building was in worse shape than I expected. The windows were shattered, the bricks crumbling, and the ivy that had once been kept at bay now crept up the sides, strangling the structure. I snapped a few photos, eager to capture the decay. I wanted to document the ruin, to show my followers what had once been a place of suffering. As I moved deeper into the asylum, I noticed something strange. The shadows were wrong. They didn't move like they should. They seemed to twist and shift independently of any light source, stretching and shrinking as if they had a mind of their own. I thought it was just my imagination, too much time spent in abandoned buildings, too much isolation. But something in me knew, even then, that it wasn't just my mind playing tricks. The air grew heavier the further I ventured. There was a dampness to it, a cold that seeped into my bones. I passed what looked like patient rooms, each door hanging ajar, the remnants of life left behind in dusty piles. The graffiti on the walls caught my eye, a disturbing pattern, strange symbols and phrases. At first, it seemed like the usual tags you'd find in any abandoned building. But as I got closer, the words shifted, becoming legible, too legible. Patient records, names, diagnoses, Horrible details of treatments, so cruel they made my stomach churn. Electroshock therapy, lobotomy, forced confinement. The words danced in front of my eyes like they were alive, written by hands that were long dead. I couldn't tear my eyes away. Something was drawing me in, making me feel like I had to know. It was only when I heard it that I snapped out of my trance. A faint sobbing. The sound was distant, but unmistakable, like the cry of someone lost and abandoned. It echoed through the halls, and despite my better judgment, I followed it. I told myself it was just the wind or some animal that had found its way inside, but the closer I got, the more real it seemed. I rounded a corner and froze. There in the middle of the hallway was a wheelchair. It hadn't been there a moment ago. I was sure of it. My heart raced as I scanned the area, trying to make sense of it. But the sobbing continued, now muffled, as if the source was just beyond the next room. The wheelchair was empty. The seat was worn, the leather cracked with age, but it was empty. No one was there. I shook my head, telling myself I was imagining things, but my feet carried me forward, pulling me toward the sound. The sobbing was louder now, more frantic, and I could almost feel the weight of the presence that filled the hallway. As I approached the door at the end, it swung open by itself, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. But it wasn't the darkness that unsettled me. It was the feeling, the oppressive sensation that I was not alone, that I was being watched. I turned to leave, but as soon as I did, the first door slammed shut. A sudden, deafening noise that rattled the walls and made me jump. I spun around, heart pounding in my chest, and realized that the other doors along the corridor were closing, one by one, as if some unseen force was locking them shut. I backed away, my breath shallow, my mind scrambling for a way out. And then I heard it, soft whispers, barely audible at first, but growing louder. It was coming from all directions, swirling around me like a storm. The voices were accusing, filled with anger and despair. You did it. It's your fault. You'll never leave. I stumbled backward, panic rising in my chest. I didn't understand. What did they mean? Who were they talking to? I had done nothing, yet the words gnawed at me, sinking into my brain, twisting my thoughts. I tried to leave, but the doors, those doors, refused to open. They were sealed shut by something far beyond my control. Then, through the haze of whispers and panic, I saw it. A mirror. It wasn't there before, but now it hung on the far wall, reflecting the dim light of my flashlight. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but as I stepped closer, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My reflection, but it wasn't me. Not entirely. In the mirror, I wore a straitjacket. The white fabric was tied around my chest, my arms pinned to my sides, and my face was twisted, contorted in a look of horror and despair. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The figure in the mirror smiled at me, a sickening, knowing smile. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet wouldn't move. My reflection didn't mirror me anymore. It was alive in its own way, reaching out with invisible fingers, pulling me into the glass. And then, just as suddenly, the vision vanished. I was back in the hallway, breathing heavily, my hands trembling. The doors were still closed, the whispers still hanging in the air. I couldn't stay here, I had to get out. I had to leave before it drove me mad. I rushed down the hall, heart hammering in my chest, and finally, I found the door that led to the outside. It swung open with ease, the night air rushing in, fresh and cool. I didn't stop to look back. I ran as fast as I could until the asylum faded from view. I didn't tell anyone about what happened. Not at first. I didn't want to sound crazy. But something followed me from St. Mary's Asylum. I know it did. It's in the reflections now, the mirrors, the windows. It's in the way my own face looks at me when I least expect it. And I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. The whispers are getting louder, and I'm not sure how much longer I can hold on to my sanity.